Yeah, well, Brian, look, thanks very much for talking with me today about the torch. One of the things I'm really interested in most is psychologically, how can it help people? Like, you know, if I'm working with people with depression and that sort of thing, I can help them mentally. But I also understand that there's a physical component in this as well. So
Yes.
how can the torch help them work?
For years, Western medicine has decided that your brain and your body were separate, and therefore psychological problems were one thing and physical problems were the other.
Yeah.
Chinese have always said the body controlled the mind controlled the body. They were part of the one thing.
Yeah.
I graduated as a certified veterinary acupuncturist in the early 1990s. Then we developed the torch because it was non-invasive and therefore better to use on animals. And then we were able to show the torch was better than lasers, and using Chinese concepts, not necessarily Chinese acupuncture points, we were able to treat a range of things, including psychological problems in animals, especially where you have a horse that gets extremely nervous and upset, doesn't want to get into a float or doesn't want to be left alone.
Oh, yeah, really? Okay.
So once you can start treating animals, you know that they don't know they're supposed to get better when you shine a light on them.
Okay.
And if it works on animals, it works on humans. So we started off treating animals as a veterinary acupuncturist using a light. I had so many farmers, I'd go and treat their animals, and then I would treat their problems, and that evening
Seriously?
I'd have yeah. So I had ended up with more people than I had horses.
Right?
So I ended up giving my practice away and going into human practice. And so then we got further human qualifications.
Oh, so you've worked with humans more, and
Well, since 97, I've been working basically with humans.
oh, okay. And is it perfectly safe to use on humans? The light?
Totally.
Is
You
it?
can't. There's a number of features that will stop the overuse. Is just wasting batteries because the body stops absorbing.
So you can't hold the light on for too long?
No, you're just wasting batteries because once the tissue has absorbed the total amount of energy, it just reflects the rest.
So how does that actually work? When you say the tissue absorbing the energy?
Well, under the skin we have a layer of protein called collagen, which is the subcutaneous connective tissue. And collagen is the thing that absorbs the energy, and it acts as an antenna, and it passes it to a reactive centre to do all the things it does. Now, once that antenna has absorbed the energy, it changes shape. It changes its absorption spectrum. So you're putting a certain spectrum in there, it can't absorb any more.
Oh, okay. So what happens when the energy goes into the, like, I get the antenna thing. So where does that energy go to, and what does it actually do?
What they call a reactive centre, which is there where the photons of energy that have been absorbed by the collagen get converted to electrons that are fed into the mitochondria or to the cell wall. So energy is used in what they call the respiratory chain of the mitochondria, and the mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cells. They produce the ATP, the adenosine triphosphate, that the cell uses to break down to get the energy for the cell's functions.
So is it actually changing the cellular structure?
Not the structure, the cellular function.
The cellular function?
Yes. All we're doing is feeding the cells. Now, when in your situation, let me talk about it in 3 tanks of water. If we have 2 tanks at a lower level, the water flows between the two, no trouble. And then we have to pump the water to a higher level. So we use food and air as our pump to pump the energy from the adenosine monophosphate, adenosine diphosphate into what they call adenosine triphosphate. If we had in the first tank a lot more water, the pressure of the water would push the water uphill.
Uphill, yeah.
And so all the light is doing is creating more adenosine monophosphate in the first instance, which is the stimulator too. So we're just feeding the cell electrically, if you want to put it in those terms.
And so feeding the cell electrically, that helps the cell to repair itself, or
yes,
get
because
better,
it gives the cell the energy and it brings the cell back into what they call homeostasis. So a cell needs to stay as it is. Right. And so therefore, if you've had a bad back or a mental problem or a mental worry even for a period of more than 6 weeks, it becomes chronic and your body accepts it as normal. Now all the cell does is returns it to normal.
Okay, so when you say, so we're talking about working on the cell's structure, but how does that relate to mental conditions?
Well, the mental cells in your brain, the nerves.
Oh, the mental cells in your brain.
Yeah. So we can stimulate. Your skin's the largest organ in the body, and if I stimulate the skin, we're stimulating a particular part in your brain called the thalamus and hypothalamus. And so the skin has 3 functions. It's protective, sensory and thermoregulatory. The sensory and thermoregulatory are controlled by the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Stimulate the skin, we stimulate the brain directly. So when somebody touches you, you know where you're touched.
Of course.
Because it was the pressure on the skin changed in an electrical signal that was carried by the nerves to the brain, and then the thalamus and the hypothalamus is the shunting yard, and it sends it off to various areas.
Yeah.
I'm being touched inappropriately, I'm being touched in a soothing manner, I'm being touched in a hurtful manner, and the body decides what to do. So all we're doing, we're using the body's normal function, but we're using it to heal the body. Now up until now, electrical and electromagnetic radiation, X-rays, CAT scans, MRIs have been used diagnostically. All we're trying to use is the same information, but rather than reading it back, we're trying to put it in and use it therapeutically. And so if somebody can strap electrodes to your scalp and read your brain waves coming out, we can put a light on the outside of your scalp. The light itself doesn't go through, but the electromagnetic radiation does, and we can change the way the brain functions as well.
Wow.
So you can control the entire body's function.
Wow.
And the Chinese found in their acupuncture that if they stimulated certain points, particularly on your back, they could stimulate physiological and psychological functions. And so it's just by knowing a little bit of acupuncture, being a vet who speaks Chinese, I was able to put the whole thing together, and if it works on an animal, we can show it works on humans. Well, then we've got 3 more human qualifications.
Fantastic. So the points that you've developed then, people can they do that on themselves?
Well, totally. It's so easy, it's safe, it's total, simple. And there's books available, and all they've got to do is put the light on. If they can count to 2 seconds,
if they can count to 2 seconds,
well, that's all they've got to be able to do. Now, I can't teach them to count to 2.
You can't.
And if they leave it on for longer, it's all they're doing is wasting batteries, but it's not going to do any harm.
So how often should they do it? Like once a week?
At least, depending. If you were to fall over this morning and sprain your ankle, I'd treat you this morning, I'd treat you in the afternoon, and tomorrow morning I'd treat you and you could go for a run. Your ankle would be totally better.
Sprain? Really?
Totally better. However, if you sprained your ankle 6 weeks ago, it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to heal.
I see.
So if we treat you, if you're coming to my clinic, I'm going to treat you a couple of times a week. If you have your own torch and the information, you can treat yourself every day, or you can treat yourself every second day. Because once the antenna is full, it takes time to pass that information to the reactive centre, to pass it to the cells. So, and if you get some little cells and grow them in an agar dish, if we expose them to light, take them out of the incubator, expose them to light and put them away again, it takes about 48 hours, 72 hours, and those cells have doubled in size, doubled in number, and we can pour fluid off that dish into another dish, and cells that have never been exposed aren't growing as fast. So it takes about, a cell's not a very big thing, so it takes 48 hours, 72 hours for the cell to get its act together and get going. So if I treat you once every 2 days, once every 3 days, that's adequate. If you are in pain, treat yourself every day, and it's still going to take the same time to heal, but it's going to cut the pain while you're healing.
You're talking about mental pain as well?
Physical or mental.
Physical or mental pain,
It's all the
same.
same.
If you're getting up in the morning, you're feeling down or blue or lost or whatever, giving yourself a treatment, doing the right points will make you feel better?
Totally, 100%.
Wow.
Now, 30% of all people are going to get better in one treatment. The other 70% are going to take 3 weeks to heal. They're just slow. But
well, that'd depend on your lifestyle too, wouldn't it?
It does to an extent, yes.
And what's happening at home and all that sort of stuff.
If you keep hitting yourself on the head with a hammer.
Of course, you know.
Yeah. So if we can change the lifestyle and change some of the thinking patterns, that's definitely going to help.
Yeah.
But otherwise, because it's a physical function that we're involved in, we're treating the person physically, so it's like putting a bandage on.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what the problem is, the bandage will help. Now, in mental problems, it's hard to put a bandage on a mental problem.
Yes,
This is one way you can. So there isn't any condition that can't be treated. Now, if you have a bacterial infection, you're better off with antibiotics.
Yes.
If you have a physical, a viral, a psychological, a physiological problem, or a pain problem, it's better to use the light. It's quicker, easier, cheaper, faster, safer.
And it works.
And it works, and it's painless.
And you can do it. And you can do it yourself.
You can do it yourself. You can do it to your kids. You can do it.
You can do it to the kids.
I've treated babies 3 weeks of age. I've treated old people. Now Chinese thinking you can't treat somebody who's too tired, too dirty, too sick, too hungry. That's nonsense. You can treat anybody at any time.
So you can use the same points, like if you're doing it on yourself to make yourself better.
Yeah.
When you go home, you can take the torch with you, and you can actually.
I've had women who bought the torch, and I've said to them, you can actually treat your husband. Oh no, I'm not going to treat him. Elbow pain, or we can treat blood pressure, or we can treat immune system.
Yeah.
So each point has a number of functions. And particularly then when you combine this point with that one, or this point with that one. So it's a matter of, do you want more salt and pepper on your meat, on your steak, or would you rather have fish? It's just a menu, and we've worked out all the various menus, the combinations. And,
so you've done all that, so we can just get all that. Fantastic.
It's all there, all just there. And now you can't sell it to people, so people have got to understand, give it a try, and then buy it and treat themselves. And, that's the way it goes.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much indeed, Brian.
It's
been a pleasure meeting you, and it's been a pleasure being here. It's just absolutely lovely.
The rent.
The rent. Thanks so much.